Okay, so I have been drawing a lot of logos recently for basketball purposes, as I thought it would be a cool, interesting thing to do when making my basketball videos instead of just me being in my chair all the time and blah blah blahing about things. So I said, what if I just did this? And I also really like doing art stuff. And what I've noticed is it's a little hard to talk about my team right now, my basketball team, because I keep doing the same things. And I did want to talk about the process of trying to make art and what got me into it, why I'm drawn to it. Specifically, if we're just talking about these logos, I felt like it was a good way to practice and a good way to give myself some confidence if I was able to replicate something that isn't necessarily too complicated but has just a bit of difficulty to it. And so yeah, this logo, this Knicks logo was one of the things that I've drawn. I've drawn about, I want to say, 8 logos so far, and the hardest one was the Celtics logo. But regardless, as far as lessons that I've learned so far, on this one, I noticed immediately that I messed up because I didn't give myself enough room on the right side, to give the Knicks lettering enough room because the S at the very end is really huge. And I looked at it, I was like, oh crap. And so what happens is with art, a lot of the times you learn how to adapt and adjust, especially if you're not drawing digitally, unless you just draw it on the first layer. That's a joke that I know only because I follow so many artists on Twitter, and all of them are amazing. All of my artist homies in real life are amazing, and I'm just like, you can do that? So yeah, I'm learning a lot as far as shapes and spacing goes, and not putting myself in weird situations because it's sort of guesswork. At the moment, it still exists as guesswork for me personally because while I'm looking at the screen, I guess I should talk about the setup. This is it's gonna be a bit of a rough start for this series only because I'm doing sort of a post analysis of my own drawing of which I was doing. And so in this with the setup as far as my art goes, I am drawing this logo, and what's happening is I'm kind of looking at my TV screen because I have my display connected to my laptop so I can just see the whole thing. And in that beautiful glory, I'm looking at that, then I'm looking down and going, okay, so I need to do this line here and this line here. And what one of my friends was telling me is instead of trying to draw the whole shape in one go, because that was something I was trying to do a lot with drawing these logos, was trying to be like, okay, so I just have to start at this one point here and then just follow that all the way here and then all the way, and just never stopping to be like, okay, what if I drew in between the spaces? So now that I do that, which which I sort of did with the next logo, I went, okay, so you got the little V line, the V neckline, then the curl up, but I kind of immediately realized my mistake with the spacing and was like, and you can see how that ends up affecting the end result. For whatever reason, I thought that at the time I was confident. I was like, okay, this looks good, and then I even messed up on just the outline. So the thing about this Knicks logo is that the spaces, the end spaces. Jesus Christ, I'm a little bit nervous when it comes to this one. The space on the outside of the Knicks logo before you start working on the inner detailing is the easiest part, but my problem was when I started working on the interior, I actually messed up on the V side, the second V, if you will, and I put it too close to the left instead of, because what I was trying to avoid doing was actually making it too big, because there's a few that I've drawn that I have pretty much made it too big. Like the sketchbook that I'm using here, you can probably do it, but in my head versus my action, trying to get that same, trying to replicate that into the physical space that is available to me, I'm kind of messing up only because I'm like, oh, I have this much room. I'm assuming instead of kind of like planning it out a little bit better. And that's sort of what happens here because I got my cameras behind me, and pretty much once I hit the record button, I'm like, okay, we just gotta go, you know? Because, so something I struggled with art too was perfectionism. Like, I definitely want to do other stuff other than logos, but these are something that I consider really cool. I really like just being able to make things that are in my head and get those concepts to exit in a way that is generally attractive in some manner, like something provocative, like, whoa, this looks really cool. This is how you interpret this. Wow. And so having the ability to practice is super important because I think a lot of the times perfectionism is like, no, this concept must look exactly like this, and if it doesn't, then you must not do it. And not doing things is way more hampering than actually doing them. So I've this sort of start here with logos is something to just get me in a rhythm. I'm kind of a rhythm person when it comes to a lot of things. I think everyone is to a degree. You know, you have your certain routines and things, and if they get interrupted, it kind of messes up your flow. But there are people who are more adaptable. I, unfortunately, willing to admit, I'm not that adaptable. When it comes to art as a whole, I've been drawing since I was in middle school because I started copying my sister who was drawing like super cool stuff, and I was like, okay, well, I bet you I could do that. And I have no idea where it's hidden, but there's like the original art that I was drawing. It was just stick figures with Super Saiyan heads. It was literally just stick figures with Super Saiyan heads on it, and it was so fucking, it was so stupid. But I remember I even like, I was always like, you know, you're drawing at the worst times in school. I wasn't one of those like, oh, I was drawing this during class and it looks like a freaking Mozart painting. As one of my homies mentioned to me, what I should say, no, I'm not no fucking Picasso. But shout out to them. He's cool. But yeah, no, the process of drawing this Knicks logo, as far as complexity versus like all of the logos that I've drawn so far, this one was like one of the easier ones to do. It does, it's not that complicated, honestly. Only thing that definitely was difficult, other than spacing, I guess, was the, how should I say it, the 3D lettering. Trying to replicate that is still something that I struggle with. Trying to get that lettering to look like it's popping off the page, because that's sort of how the Knicks logo looks. Like the K's look imposing, and they're very tall, but they're also spacious, and mine are a little bit crunched in, and they sort of kind of achieve that look. I mean, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna probably have the logo, the actual logo, sitting next to this drawing, so you can see it, sort of see how it looks. Obviously, it's not gonna be one to one, but I hope that what I gain from this, as far as like leveling up for art and stuff, is a keener understanding of shapes and spaces. Not that I can just like, you know, just blink and just shoot out like, oh, I can draw a 3D landscape and a background and all that. That's years. That's gonna take years. For now, I'm like content with seeing where I can improve and stuff like this, and hopefully add on some shading, learn some basic other things as far as art goes, because I've always admired this stuff. I've always been like, wow, this looks cool, I want to do it. That's kind of how I've done everything in life. Wow, this looks cool, I want to do it. And so you catch yourself and you're like, oh man, that's why don't we just try it then? You know, because the worst comes to worst, it just doesn't look that good. But it's not supposed to look amazing. You're not supposed to come out of the womb doing Picasso things. You're just not, and that's okay. So yeah, so far, depending on how I edit this, the video could be, I could have gone past the squares, but right now what I'm looking at is the squares. The squares actually made drawing this a lot easier because it gave me sort of a stopping point for all the lettering. Even though, again, like I said, I messed up on giving the S space when I did the right side of the logo. The thing that I like is that those little squares are there, so when I draw those, because they're sort of what the Knicks are standing on, it's like, okay, so I know where I should stop. And I didn't even think about it until like I drew it, because when I drew the first K, I was like, oh god, this is I immediately, that's when I think it really clicked how much space I had, because I even point to it at one point. I'm like, god. But yeah, no, definitely next time what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to record me talking while I'm drawing and seeing if that helps. But yeah, no, the squares are something that helped with this logo. As far as like this logo's aesthetic appeal, if I had to compare it to like every other logo, I like the orange and blues. It's cool. As far as like knowing if it's the soul of New York or anything like that, I couldn't say. I've only been to New York twice. If anybody's watching and wants to offer advice, I just am thinking off the dome. And like I said, this first episode is going to be rough because it's sort of a reintroduction to the series, and I haven't gotten the formula down for the series yet. But if there's anybody who's been to New York and is watching this video, watching me draw the Knicks logo, what are some things or aesthetics? Does the Knicks logo have like a proper representation for New York? And is there any advice as an artist that you could offer to me, the beginner, drawing the logo? And what are some things that are cool about New York? So mostly it's a sort of general question. I've been to New York twice, but it was more I was hanging out in hotels, and I was on a bus. I was on a bus to we went on one of those weird double-decker buses where like the top is open and you can sit, and then the tour guide's like, hey man, look at this building. That building, it's a building that has something to do with the significant history of the place. And here we are driving over a bridge. Are you terrified yet? Yes, the answer is yes. Fun fact about me, I hate heights. I hate them. I despise them. So when we were on the bus, I was just pretty much like tucked into the corner, just like, yeah, that's a really cool, that's a really cool thing, you know? Just tucked in the back, just hoping that nothing, like we wouldn't tip over, because just those buses make me think of like wedding cakes where they have like 17 different levels, and I'm like, just at some point, this is no longer a cake. This is just art. I mean, art is like borderline everything, but this is no longer a cake. This is an event. This is a building that you can. This is an edible building, edible building. You know. So, yeah. I was, as far as like satisfaction with how I did this logo personally, I felt like I did an okay job at getting it down. If I would have made it a little bit bigger and given myself a little bit more room, I think it would have allowed me to get that S to look like it's supposed to look. But other than that, I think I did okay. I feel like the 3D effect is kind of there now that I'm looking at it post drawing, looking at it, watching it happen. But you know, overall, it's not bad. I don't think. I think it was fine. But now we're gonna do something to see if I can even further replicate it. If you've been watching any of these basketball videos and just probably muting, because honestly, I'm saying the same thing over and over again when it comes to the basketball. But if you have been watching these by any chance, watching the art happen sort of when I'm not interrupting it with edits and stuff, I have not colored any of these at all. It's not necessarily intentional, actually. It's actually because I don't have any colored pencils. And we're going to change that today. I'm going to go to Michael's. So let's go.
This whole joint frozen. Just trying to get to my car. I'm already sliding. Are you seriously? Seriously. This will be on. I just wanted to go outside and get some. Bro, that's wild. Let's see if I make it. All right. Oh Jesus. This is the only time I'm not. I suddenly stopped being fucking agnostic for about 2 seconds, so I don't die. All right, 2, 3. Hey, wait a minute. There's a ground. We made it. So I almost died trying to freaking get to my car. That's fun. It's super fun. Oh! Felt my soul leave my body right there. Jesus. And my entire car is frozen solid. Wow. Okay. Gotta go warm up my car. So let's go get some colored pencils, people. So I just got some expensive colored pencils. I just picked ones up that look really fancy, and had all the colors. I probably should have just gotten the ones I was looking at initially. I also saw this guy in a really dope Miami Heat Vice jersey. My guy, you were looking clean. If you watched my video, you were looking clean, my guy. But yeah, so we're going home now with our spoils. So door. I need to unlock my car. I got these artist loft pencils. These colored pencils. I saw them. I was like, hey, these look pretty fancy. I forgot the rule of, hey, they don't have to be fancy as long as you know what you're doing. So you could have started with the basics. By the time I got to the register and found out the price, it was too late, and I felt bad for even thinking about going to get something else. So yeah, coloring. Oh my god, it's really hard. Wow, it's not okay. Hard is the wrong word there. It's not difficult. It's time consuming, especially once you know exactly what colors you need, and once you know like all of the spaces and what colors they require. The actual act of doing so, somehow I underestimated it and was like, okay, so I can just record myself coloring this in one take. It was not one take. It took all of my. I was like, oh Jesus, all right, this is longer than I thought. So I got my butt kicked by that, and what I learned from that process was that actually, once you color stuff in, you can start to see the shapes get defined a little bit more than in the initial sort of sketch. So that was a neat little thing. I was like, oh, hey, I'm seeing the image start to really come to life in a way that you don't get to often see it just a sketch. I mean, you can do it with just blacks and whites, but I am not one of those super uber talented people that can just take one pencil and be like, here's this insanely realistic defined 4K version of a person or a thing, and it's so realistic that literally you have to make sure that you haven't eaten any edibles or something because it's that real. It's crazy. So I had fun coloring this. Felt like a kid. Definitely felt like a kid, but in a good way. You know, you're watching something come to life. You're like, hey, this is cool. This is nice. So I enjoyed it. I got my butt kicked by it. I'm definitely never gonna underestimate it again. And I hope that eventually coloring becomes like, hey, here's the fun part that where it comes to life. I did not realize just how time consuming it can be and how sore my hands are going to be. But I think that's because I tend to kind of really push the crap out of the pencil. Because if you look, you can see to the left, the blue pencil had to be sharpened on both ends just in case I overused it again. But luckily, overcame the elements today, and we made this little drawing. We made this little Knicks drawing, and I hope it kind of compares to the original logo. in any kind of decent format. I just could see the meme format. I want the Knicks logo. We have Knicks logo at home. Knicks logo at home. This thing. But yeah, no. Good times. Coloring. It's torture to a degree. I'm gonna go think about doing other art stuff. Maybe I'll color in some other logos that I did and do a similar video to this. Obviously, it'll be a little bit more clean next time. This one was more just like feeling it out and learning and being like, okay, am I comfortable with this format yet? Do I have the formula down? No, but that's the part that's developing on anything, So hopefully this was fun for you to watch me nearly trip and fall and continue to trip and fall throughout my life. We will do more art things with logos and objects and other cool things and learn about depth and lighting maybe and shading and all that fun stuff. For now, it's just gonna keep kicking my butt, but you get to watch me develop, which is always fun. It's like, which relates to basketball, but I am avoiding saying anything about basketball. It's time. It's that time again. It's that time again. All right. Well, this guy says, gravity is powerful. So is ice. And in certain situations, both can be nice. But not to me. Not to me. And not today. Make sure you're blow drying your stairs, people. Make sure you're